And I will start with inviting you to close your eyes. We will do some experiential work first, and then we'll go exploring a little bit of all the principles that Anthony talked a little bit about before, that resource, felt sense, pendulation, and titration, that we will talk about how this can support your work with breath. So as you close your eyes, bring your attention to yourself and how your breath is moving through your system, breathing in and out, connecting to your own breath. And as I understand, you coming back from the break, so now it's your opportunity to drop in a little bit deeper into receiving information again. Notice where in your body your breath is moving naturally on its own without you directing it. Take a deep, full breath into this place. You can even put your hand onto this place, whether it's your belly or your chest. Put your hand on the place where your breath is moving. And take a big conscious breath into this place so you can feel the expansion, the movement that happens in your body. As you breathe in, there is movement. Your lungs expand, your rib cage expands. And as you breathe out, the lungs expel the air, they shrink in size, and your rib cage also drops. So notice this movement that happens in your body with breath. Breath is movement. And if you are deeply breathing, there is movement happening in your body. If you're deeply breathing, you're deeply feeling. The moment you start to cut off your breath, you cut off your emotions. Now staying present to how the breath is flowing. And I invite you, with the next breath, breathe in deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. And take another breath this way. Now I invite you to bring your attention to all of the physical sensations that are present in your body. I will be talking in a little while about the concept of felt sense. So your felt sense is your interoception, the feeling of your internal landscape, and it's strictly physical sensation. We don't attach any meaning to our felt sense. So now activating this sense of yourself, of your physical environment right now, notice what's alive for you physically. Where are the areas that feel open, expanded, and where are the places in your body that maybe feel tense, contracted, or maybe even you feel some pain or discomfort there. Just noticing without trying to do anything about it. And once you get a hold of this thread of sensation, you follow that thread. It's called tracking felt sense. Tracking your felt sense. So you go in deeper within your body, following that thread of sensation, unwinding this twine that leads you all the way to your core. And once you follow that movement within, your felt sense will show you what is alive for you. It may lead you through some emotional landscape or some feelings. So allow yourself to be there, but bring your attention back to your felt sense, to your experience of your physicality. It doesn't mean anything unless we make it mean something. Take a deep, full breath, breathing into this experience of yourself. Stay present with the physicality. And another deep, full breath, and opening your eyes. And I want to welcome you, and we will be talking about the concept of felt sense, resourcing, pendulation, and titration. And these are the foundational aspects of any work with the body, any somatic work that is rooted in trauma release. These are the concepts that we look at and clearly address. So since you're working with breath, you're bound sooner or later find someone who is traumatized. It is simply the nature of the work that we're doing. We are working with people with the breathing, which starts to activate our system, whether in a sympathetic or parasympathetic way. And when you work with breath in a sympathetic way, the breathing that we use, deep connected breath through the mouth, it's activating for the entire nervous system. The connected breath is an activation which produces the fight or flight response. And it's great if we want to work with that fight or flight response, but many people, for them, when they go into this fight or flight response, they feel instantly overstimulated. So for this not to happen, we need to be able to pendulate and titrate. Pendulating meaning that you're going from activation to resource and moving between the place of activation and the place of safety. So now I want to guide you first into finding your own resource, so you are a little more closely connected to understanding what the resource is and what it can do for you. So resource is a place of safety. We're talking first about internal resource, a place of safety that you find within your own physical body. So a place of safety can feel warm, relaxed, spacious, general good feelings in that part of your body. So now if you scan your own physical body, find this place of safety. And it can be anywhere. It can be in your hands, it could be in your chest, or your head, or your belly, or your heart, or your feet, something that gives you a feeling of being connected to your body, being grounded. So when you find this place, put your hand on it and notice the sensation of your hand touching your body. This feeling of contact between your hand and the rest of your body, and that place where you find this place of resource. The moment we shift our attention to the place of resource, the charge begins to diminish. So we identify our resource by using our felt sense. And the concept of felt sense, I just guided you a little bit onto the meditation, where you were able to experience your own physical body without attaching any meaning to it. So we are finding this physical sensation, and we're tracking this sensation, following it deeper, where it leads us into a place of connection. You can do the same with activation. So we can move between the activation and the felt sense, using our activation and the resource, using our felt sense. So tracking this sensation, going into working with the charge. And when we're breathing in connected breath, our system is activated, so the charge begins to arise. We're supporting our our participants to stay in the place where they can be comfortably with the charge. So the charge is not overwhelming for them. When the charge starts to begin to get overwhelming for the participants, there's a tendency to lose them in the too much activation, or the other thing that can happen is dissociation. So they check out. And I'm sure a lot of the times you have seen in your breath session or experienced yourself, you're breathing, and all of a sudden you fly out, you're not there. Who have experienced that? Raise your hand. Yeah, well, most of us. Yeah, and what happens is that our sympathetic activation kicks in, and our body, to prevent overstimulation, it takes us out. And this is done for protection. It's called dissociation. And it's okay if this happens. This is a pattern that our body goes through sometimes in the session. But to have a deeper understanding and support our clients to have a deeper understanding of their process, of their emotional landscape, it's great to keep them present. Keep them present in the body and keep them present to their experience. In particularly with biodynamic breath work, we explore working with the body while the person is connected to what's happening. We don't really explore so much the alternate states of consciousness, which also can be very beneficial. And that happens during this dissociation, this leaving the body. But to have a successful trauma release session, you need to support the clients to stay absolutely present and connected in their body. So for this, pendulation, meaning like a pendulum moving between activation and the resource, is by far the most important tool that you can use. So this gives our clients opportunity to stay present without being overwhelmed. So we are charging, we're going into a deep, full breath. And after a while, when the sympathetic system begins to activate, we are going into the fight or flight mode. Some movement begins to start, some emotions start to flow. And it's great to bring your clients into resource after a while so that everything can calm down and they can be way more present to the feelings and sensations that are being activated. Because when we're super activated, the emotions takes over and we lose touch with reality. And a lot of the times when the emotions gets activated, people slip back into the original trauma, which is stuck in the system. The original trauma, which is stuck in the system in the form of tension, actual physical tension, which has resulted in a fight or flight of the original situation. The fight or flight's been released into the body, but not expressed. It's been interrupted. So where there was no direction to run to, or you couldn't actually defend yourself. So this fight or flight, when it's incomplete, it settles in the body as tension. When we go into a breath session, we begin to activate this with our breath. We activate this tension, we activate this fight or flight, and it has the potentiality to be completed. So for this to happen, we need to work with the person in a way that they are not overwhelmed. Because if they're overwhelmed, they slip back right into the original situation, and there's a potential for them to be re-traumatized. And I'm sure many of you have come out of a breath session at least once where you felt that something so deep has come up for you and you simply have no resources to process it. Who's been in this situation? Please raise your hand. I want to see if, yes, it happens. So we want to avoid these kind of situations. And for sure, you won't be able to eliminate them completely because everyone has a different level of resiliency. For some, 3 breaths is enough to tip them over into that state. And for someone else who has more resilient a nervous system, you can go on to breathing, and then your body will respond okay with that. But when we work with activation, you need to really be present on how much activation you're bringing into your group. Especially this is valid when you're working with people online, because you don't see everyone at the same time. If you're working with the group, especially, you don't see everyone at the same time. And you don't know if somebody is in their home and they're going into a breath session, and after a while they begin to access a space of a very deep emotional trauma, and they have absolutely no support. So I highly recommend for you guys to support people, to guide them into finding their resource before they go into a session. So people know what their internal resource is, what their place of safety. So you found it in yourself, this place of safety, this internal resource. But there is also can be external resource. An external resource can be in a place outside of you. So right now, I invite you to scan your room where you're in right now. Look around your environment and find a place or or an object or a color or a view out of the window or a picture, something that you can call your external resource. A pet can be external resource. So look, yeah, oh, little tiny animal figure. That's an external resource. So when you hold that object, or if you look at that object, what feelings and sensations of safety and comfort that comes up for you? So notice that. So we are turning it back into the body. We're using the external stimuli, like that object, to turn it back into the body, how it makes us feel safe, how it makes us feel connected. For example, in the group, you as a facilitator or as a supporter is an external resource for your client. You represent that line of safety. You represent the connection. They can rely on you. So therefore, when you're presenting, you need to show up confident, present, and grounded, because this gives your students, your participants, the sense that I can trust this person. If I am in danger, they can take care of me. Right away, they relax. It gives them kind of an unconscious permission to go and explore whatever's been hidden for a while, whatever they didn't access it sometimes for years. And as they begin to breathe, the breath activates that. So many times we have seen participants in the group room going into emotional response, emotional expression, and at times it's overwhelming. So whatever we want to do, we want to avoid the space of bringing our participants in the space of overwhelm, because this, for the nervous system, it's disturbing. For the nervous system, there is no way to release trauma that way. This is kind of old school therapy: scream it out, beat it out. But from all the information that we know right now about trauma and how it's held in the body, how it's released, it's not beneficial anymore. So going back into the body and staying with the sensation within the window of tolerance, meaning that the person can comfortably be with the activation without being overwhelmed. And then bringing them back into the resource. When they're in the resource, you need to slow everything down. So when the person is, for some reason, you need to, in the middle of a breath session, you need to bring one or two participants out of the activation into the resource. So what do? This is the pendulation, that's when the pendulation comes in. You are switching the breath away from connected breathing to breathing in through the nose. That's right away is activating for the parasympathetic system. You have them open their eyes. That is number one step. They need to orient within take attention away from being lost in that emotional charge into an external space, that right now there is no danger. This is already pendulating from the charge into the resource. They need to look around. When we look around and orientate ourselves, we engage a ventral vagal complex. So ventral part of the vagus nerve, which is responsible for social engagement. This right away brings the person out of the fight or flight response. And it may take some time, quicker with some people than others, but the key here is that you need to keep your clients engaged. So as somebody's asking, catharsis is not as beneficial as we thought. It is more about holding, containing, and transforming now. Yes, it's really true. Catharsis can be beneficial if it's connected, if it's a real conscious expression. And it can be strong. Expression can be strong. And it all depends on the resiliency of your client's nervous system. But it's all about the connection. Catharsis as a mindless venting, as a temper tantrum, it has no therapeutic value. It may feel good at the moment because all of these chemicals are released into the body. It feels, wow, I'm expressing it, I'm going apeshit, and it feels good. But in the long term, it has not really long-term healing effects. So going back into the pendulation, so we activate our client to a certain degree, and it's better to start slower, so it gives nervous system an opportunity to get used to the activation. So you activate and then you bring back to the resource. And this already naturally happens in a very beautiful breath session. I'm sure you have done it yourself. So you go through this kind of graph. You charge, you come to a peak, then you slow down, and that's as the natural pendulation happens. And then again, you come into the breathing peak and you stay there, and you go even higher peak, and then you slow down again and you come into a valley again, and you feel like this suspended animation. It feels like you're floating, but you're present. So it happens a lot naturally, but we're talking about the people that don't have that natural self-regulation. And there are a lot of people like that. And a lot of people that want to come into the breath work, they don't have that natural self-regulating system. So bringing them into the resource, make sure that they know what their resource is before they go into a breath session. And another term that I use is titration. Titration is a term from chemistry. So when we take two liquids and mix them together, and these liquids just react to each other, they just foam and explode. But if you mix these liquids drop by drop, there is no big reaction happens. So in the term titration in the trauma work is used to mean that we release little by little. So the activation is coming, and we monitor the intensity of this release. So we go in a small fragments, connected fragments, so the person's system does not get overwhelmed. This way, we activate the system just enough so they do not go into a space where they can be re-traumatized. Let me look at my notes if I'm missing something. Research. Okay, so another way to bring person into the resource is touch. When we touch them, when we go around and support them with hands-on, this is a beautiful opportunity to connect with touch and bringing their attention. So you guide them through bringing their attention into the place of contact. This is a beautiful way for them to pendulate, going from the emotional expression. People get emotionally charged, they go into a very big space of release, and then you come and you put your hands on their body and you support them in that, and they feel that they are seen in that. There's something beautiful happens, that there's a concept of, there's this unconscious concept of when we go into a trauma, we're by ourselves. When we're in a traumatic activation, there is nobody there. It's just us and our experience. And trauma is never in the event, it's in the body. It's how our body processes the event that is stuck in our physicality. So when you come over and put your hand on the person's body, it brings them away from that emotional activation back into their body. That's pendulation. Yeah, so you bring them from activation, from emotional response back to the touch. And touch can be also stimulating. You can do some body work with them to support them to go into a deeper activation, or the touch can be resourcing. So that's pendulation. So we titrate the emotional expression little by little, not to overwhelm our clients, because there is nothing to be gained in overwhelm. It's kind of you taking everything that's been settled and settled for years, and then you shake it up. And if the person is left in that state without the resource, without the grounding, that's actually could be very damaging for the system. And it could take a very long time to process, to bring it all down again. So Emily, Emily, you're a trainer. Yeah, you're a facilitator here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you if you can manage taking people's questions, and maybe people can come on the screen and ask. And there's somebody's typing. If they can ask a question in a chat, maybe you can read for me. Is that okay?
Do you want me? Yeah. Do you want me to do it as they're coming in, or would you like to after you're speaking?
I'm actually ready to take some questions now, so I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions about the information that I just shared with you. And maybe you can type, you can ask them live, or you can type them into the chat.
And if you'd like to ask them live, what you could do is put up the little blue hand, so that way we know who would like to ask a live question, and then any otherwise you can put it in the chat. Thanks, guys. Okay, so Nadia Papiani has a question live.
Go ahead.
Hi, Giten. So nice to meet you. I have a question because, the way you describe of working, I mean, as a somatic experience practitioner, I've been integrating somatic experiencing and breath work, and on one-on-one basis, it works quite nicely. But I am curious, how do you bring this level of sensitivity and depth of work into a group space when you're working with groups? This is one of my points of insecurity, I suppose, as a trauma worker.
Yes, that's a great question. See, the group is consisting of individuals. So when you know how to work with an individual, you will be able to hold the space for the group. The group, when the group comes together, it becomes its own entity. So managing the general level of the charge of the group, that's how you work with the group. So if you see that one or two people are going into the space of high charge, and you work and you're holding the group, you need to bring the entire group down. Because this energy, the energy of chaos and emotional overwhelm, is contagious. It spreads like wildfire. When one person starts, the rest will pick up in no time. And I'm sure you've seen it happen in your group sessions. Yeah, so managing the group as its own entity. So the group has this wave of activation and resource, and you working with that flow. Is that clear? Does that make sense to you?
How do you, so I guess the question is, how do you manage the group activation by attending to individuals, the individuals within the group who are activated?
Okay.
Or do you have some other tricks and tools?
The way that I do it, I come and I walk around, and I don't spend too long with each particular person. I come in, I do something, I bring them down if it's needed, and then I move on. So when I'm with one person, I'm actually losing attention from the rest of the group. So when you're holding space, you come and walk around and you touch and you move on. And it's great also to always have your supporters with you who are trained in the work, that know what's happening, that know how to touch. So it's about your presence and holding space for the entire group and managing activation for the entire group. And when you're coming in and touching, this really is bringing away attention from the group to one individual. So the time that you spend with them needs to be minimized. 1-2 minutes is enough. Working through touch, bringing them into the presence. And of course, there's been situations where one person requires way more attention. It takes literally no time for somebody to slip into this trauma vortex and be completely overtaken by it. And in that case, they need some presence and support. So I highly recommend that, first of all, you don't work on your own. There needs to be at least one other person in the room with you. And unless it's a very small group of a few individuals, then you can probably handle it. But more than 5, you probably need already another person there with you. And really manage your time, how much you spend with each individual, that you don't lose the entire group. Yeah. Another way to resource people is to ask them to use self-touch. That you can't touch everyone. You ask them to use self-body work. You guide them into a way that they can squeeze the back of their neck, they can massage their jaw, they can work with SCM muscle right here, and work with their shoulders, massage their belly, going into their diaphragm. So self-body work is a very important tool that you can bring into the work with group. Yeah, so that will actually start to bring the people away from the charge back into the body. All right. Is there another question?
Yeah, Lavina had one. Lavina?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So I asked that first question in reference to like the intensified and that more cathartic experience. And I'm curious how we would bring someone into that pendulation if they're feeling frozen or numb, or like they can't access the energy that's stuck without first activating with maybe some kind of physical emotional release. I know personally I've had really powerful experiences with emotional release, like with pillow pounding and yelling into my hands, and of course going into it consciously. But yeah, I guess I'm just curious if you would suggest not even engaging with that, or just if there is that conscious and entering into it, that it would be okay, yeah. And then just making sure that there's the balance.
Yes. Conscious expression can be very beneficial, and it can be big. as long as it's connected, as long as it's grounded and the person is present in their body. And it could be very beneficial. Somebody has never ever in their life felt their anger. You are not allowed. For them, coming into that energy and owning it, it could be an incredible breakthrough. If you ask a somatic SE therapist, somatic experiencing therapist, they will tell you absolutely no strong emotional expression. In the breath work, we know that this can be very beneficial as long as it's connected, as long as it's grounded, as long as it has the power behind it. It's not just venting and going into a temper tantrum. And you also mentioned that there's a place, how to work with somebody if they're frozen. So our body goes into the fight or flight response when activated, or it goes into freeze, dissociation. And these are not the responses that we choose consciously. Our system is programmed to react in these ways. So if somebody goes into this complete dissociation, we need to bring them back into feeling in the body. Open your eyes, touch their body, squeeze their body. You sometimes be even stronger. Sometimes there has been a situation where I had to give somebody a slap, and that shook them out of that completely flying away. Yeah, I slapped somebody across the face, and they thanked me. And that was something that was needed in the moment to bring them out from a completely spaced out, frozen space. Ooh, I'm here, I'm back. And I don't know if you ever seen the videos of, like nature videos of impala being caught by a cheetah. And so impala is going into this fight or flight response, it's running, and then it's got caught, and it goes into a complete dissociation mode. It needs to, because otherwise it will feel all the pain that while it's being suffocated, eaten alive. So it goes into this dissociation frozen mode. The moment the cheetah gets distracted, the impala sees the opportunity. Again, the fight or flight kicks in, and it runs away. So the fight or flight is actually never stopped running under that frozen response. It's still there. So somebody goes into dissociation, goes into freezing. Underneath it, there is fight or flight. So supporting the person to come out of the freezing, move your body, use your voice, use your movement, use your breath to come out of the freezing. And the moment they do, they will be in a beautiful space of actually completing that fight or flight that's been interrupted. So emotional expression, when it's connected, and it can be strong, as long as it's connected, it has its benefits. When you're working with the group and it's a group of new individuals, you don't know what their resiliency level is. When you're working with somebody one-on-one for a while, you know how resilient they are. But if you're working with the group, it's a new group, people just come in, you have no idea who is there. You can send them a questionnaire and have an idea, slight idea, but we all have different resiliency in our nervous system. For somebody that's going into a few minutes of a breath session can be extremely overwhelming. And for someone else, this is just, oh yeah, give me more. I want to go deeper. So monitor, keep your eyes scanning the space, constantly looking for the signs of overwhelm, for the signs of freezing. When somebody goes into a frozen response, it means that they already encountered the trauma, and then the next level is dissociation. So bringing people out of that space, get them moving, use their voice. Okay, another question?
Yeah, Kara has one here in the chat box. When I've held space for somebody who's going through a trauma, her question is, it's in two spots.
Hi, Emily. I don't mind
Oh.
answering it live actually now because I'm
Perfect.
I was.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you. Can you
Ah,
please speak closer to the mic?
hi, Giten. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, wonderful. My question was, I held space for someone close to me, and they got quite in their process. They were raging and screaming and shouting. And I used touch, and I also used my voice to bring them to the body and to the breath, but it wasn't welcome. He verbalized to me that, you know, I'm kind of in my process, and by you talking to me, you're taking me out of my process. So it was quite difficult. It was a difficult one for me. I trusted him in his process, that he could handle the overwhelming sensation, but it's probably not advised. I guess my question is, how do I handle this?
Yes. Um, Someone is going through this strong process, and they're screaming and shouting, and that they want you not to interfere. Uh, when you are trying to interfere to slow them down, there could be one of two things. They are just expressing a mind construct. They think that this is what I have to do. I need to get this out. In that case, they are not really connected to what is actually happening in their physical body. They're on that emotional level. They're with the emotional charge. And when we're in a strong emotional charge, we cannot feel our body. We cannot be present and grounded. So um, that could be one thing. Another thing is the person is actually going into something deep, and they can be with that. They actually benefiting from that. And I try to avoid this kind of expression. So before, when I was started to learn the breath work, this was kind of a norm. This is what we did. Like 20 years ago, when I was in the breath work training myself, this is what we did. We went into a full-on emotional expression, beating the pillow, screaming, shouting, and in one sense, it was great. I'm glad that I did it. And in the other sense, I saw there were so many people in my training that was extremely traumatized by that. So again, it comes down to the resiliency of the system and how much a person um, can be with what's happening. If somebody wants you not to interfere in their process, so they can be either stuck in the idea of what they need to do, but you can support them into bring their attention, not to stop them, but to actually slow down all the movements, slow down the expression, and bring their attention on how it feels in their physical body. So they're not stuck in the emotional response, but actually connecting that into their physicality. So again, you're inviting them to use their felt sense, to be present with their felt sense, so they can be present and grounded in their expression. That it's not just pure venting. Leave me alone. I've been waiting for this. I want to scream it out. I want to shout it out. I want to beat the pillow. And it may not be, yeah, it like I said earlier, it can be beneficial for them right in the moment, but in the long term, it will not have healing results. They will come back to it again, and it will hit them again with the same intensity. So it's kind of replaying the broken record. You keep coming back to the same experience and repeating it. And as long as it's not grounded in the body, as long as a person is not really connected to the physical manifestation of this expression, then they will keep repeating it, because it's an emotional level. Emotion is connected with the mind. It's a mind expression.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. What I take from what you're, thank you so much, sorry for answering my question. It sounds like integration, the only way to really manifest and embody an integrated experience is to feel it in the body, to connect with what your body feels like in trauma response, and then to stay so present with it that it almost pops.
Yes.
Like it just,
Yeah, pretty
you're not
much.
sticking with the emotional story that your mind is creating those emotions.
Yes, the mind is attached to the story.
Yeah.
We all know ourselves as a story of some sort. When we are in the felt sense, when we're in the body and we're not attaching a story to it, our body clearly shows us what is actuality. And the more you're in the story, the more activation begins to happen. The more you think about what's activating you, the more activated you become. We all know we can think ourselves into a completely emotional wreck, or we can drop the story and come back into the body. When there is no story in the body clearly shows us what is actually there. And this is how we want to work with people. We want to take them away from being stuck in the story. The story keeps people living as traumatized individuals. Take away the story, it's just tension that's related to a particular event. Tension that's been energy that's been released into the body but not expressed. That's tension. Tension has emotions associated with that. The moment we begin to release the tension, emotions that's stuck in that tension also come up together with that release. The movement comes up, emotions come up, then we move it away from the story. It's just expression. Then we're not stuck. And there's many layers that we can encounter. Going deeper and deeper and deeper within our body, we encounter the layers of developmental trauma. All the trauma that we experience from the time of being in the womb until about age 7 to 10 years old. This is what defines us as a character structure. And in your training, you were or about to watch the webinars that we created for our course. It's 7 Reichian character structures. And that's all about developmental trauma and how we hold tension in our physical body that's related to a developmental trauma. And that's our story. So letting go of the story, not necessarily to block them, but to shift our attention how the story is reflected in the physical body.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And there's a couple of questions here around how to work with people online in this way. So how do you handle working with people online, and do you suggest them to touch their body wherever they feel blocked? Maybe just in general, because I know you're leading this course right now, the online, how to work somatically online.
Yes, right now we're leading a course on how to work with people online. So the tips that we're sharing right now is focused around self-body work, how to use felt sense and give yourself body work while you're breathing, and working a lot with pendulation. So bringing the charge up very slightly, because like I said, sometimes I'm giving a breath session online and there's 250 people on the call. I have no idea where they are and what state they're in. So it's better to be on the cautious side. So bring in activation just enough for them to experience some sort of release, and then bringing it back to the resource. And then again, second time you come back into activation, it's a bit longer sustaining activation, and then again you come back to the resource. Make sure that you guide all the participants online, the clients, if you're working individually, guide them into finding their resource. Everyone needs to know what the resource is in the body, how it's felt, that it's not emotional identification, it's purely physical, using your felt sense. And keep reminding them what this resource exists in their body at the same time as activation does. This is the concept that makes trauma release possible, is that you don't just go into a charge and then you go into a discharge. We are working with the charge, knowing that the resource is also there at the same time. That gives us an opportunity to go deeper into exploration. Okay, and we have time for another question or two.
Yeah, there's one here from Nadia. When a strong introvert has a very deeply sad, painful emotional expression with tears and is completely closed off, hiding and not allowing access. And then when allowing coming close is self-analyzing, finding excuses. How do you support this deep, sad grief crying without belittling their experience?
Yes, again, it all comes down to using a felt sense. So supporting the person in that sorrow. Maybe for them it's very beneficial. It's something that's they've been waiting to express for a long time, and they may need to spend some time there. And it's okay to let them be in that state, as long as they know that they can shift their attention to their internal resource or external resource at any time. And you can be there, you can provide them with the possibility that you are also a resource for them. Ask them what they need, how they need to be supported right now. Somebody wants to withdraw, they can, but then they're stuck in that self-perpetuating loop of activated, of being in activation, and activation that creates more sensation. Before you know, they're sucked into this trauma vortex. And we want to avoid that. We want to keep shifting their attention to their body, that they have a body. They're not just an emotion. Because in that state, person feel I am emotion and nothing else. So bringing them back into their physicality, bringing them back that, I have a body, I live in the body, emotion is expressed from my body, emotion is expressed from a certain place in my body. Emotion was stuck in that place previously, and now I am allowing this emotion to express. So educate your clients about that. Guide them into the body as much as possible. This is their home. This is where they're grounded. And as long as they're grounded in their body, they can allow anything without being overwhelmed by that. And does that make sense? Was it Nadia? Yes?
Yes, thank you, Giten, very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Another question before we wrap up?
I actually, Giten, I have one other one, which is kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. I've worked with a person who has complete dissociation of the body. So does not like to see its own body, not like to touch, completely hiding in the way they dress, the way they hold their body and posture. And so it was extremely difficult to touch their body because I know how uncomfortable it is. But in that case, when emotions came up, it's really difficult to support the person just with words. But I know touch would be beneficial, but they almost come into a shock catharsis when you touch them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guide them to start with touching their own body. And you can touch them starting always from the periphery, hands, feet. Yeah, don't go straight for the center of the body. But I would start with a person like this, start from asking them to touch their own body and explore their body, feel that. It's for someone who's been completely dissociating from their body, it's really like learning a brand new language. Usually in the character structure, the person is related to a split type, a schizoid. The trauma occurred in the very early stages of life, whether in the womb or at birth or within the first year after birth. And when you support someone to come into this understanding, I have a body, I live in my body, and that actually changes everything. And starting from self-touch, giving your body a touch and exploring, squeezing, maybe just putting the hand on the body and sensing the temperature, sensing the texture, giving them an object to hold that feels good, allowing them to speak what they're experiencing through their sensation of touch, giving them something to taste, what they experience with the taste. Look around, finding place of safety. And it will take some time if you're working with someone individually like that. You figure this, they spend their entire life, 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes, without allowing this contact to their physicality. You can't expect it to shift instantaneously. You need time. Sometimes it takes a couple of years of regular work before things begin to shift. It's not such a quick response. Of course, many people respond very quickly, but many actually really need time. So touching on periphery, allowing them to be with that, asking permission. Can I touch you right now? What would be the place you want me to touch, or you allow me to put my hand, so you feel safe? And when you get that permission, you touch them, ask them to feed back to you what they're experiencing through that touch. Tell me the temperature of my hand, the texture, what comes up when you feel that touch on your body. In many cases, shame will come up. And shame is huge in our culture. It's all related to repressed sexuality, a lot of strong religious conditioning. It's all related to shame. Shame around our physical body, the most natural thing that we have. Shame around looking a certain way. Shame around feeling certain emotions. So bringing that all back into the physicality. That's a doorway out of being stuck. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Very well explained. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think we have time for another question. Another 3-4 minutes. Yeah, so I was told that it's 1 hour, right, Emily?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I have a chainsaw going on in my background, so you can hear that. Thank you so much, Giten, for coming and sharing all of your experience. And we love your videos and love working with you. Yeah.
It's really my pleasure, guys. I'm very happy to share with you. I'm very happy that Anthony invited me to share with you guys. You find so much information in my book, Feel to Heal. It's available on Amazon. You can get it. I will be guiding a breath session online. I forgot the date. It's all on our website, biodynamicbreath.com. You can find all the information there. And I'm very happy to share with you. I hope you go out there and do the work. The world really needs more breath workers out there. And I know Anthony's doing a fantastic job training you. And we're also about to take our training online. It's coming out in September. It's all going to be trauma-oriented, a beautiful addition to what you're already doing, bringing in the tools of self-body work and how to support people individually, online, and in groups. Self-body work in combination with breath, and of course, a lot of information on how we store trauma in the body and how to approach to work with it. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much. See you soon. I'm available for individual sessions. If any of you want to book one with me, you can email me, giten@biodynamicbreath.com, and I'll be happy to support you. See you soon. Ciao.
Thank you, Giten. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, wow. Look at this beautiful community. Giten is definitely take a look at some of those online classes. I'll be bringing some of that, the self massage. I'm really excited to start bringing this in for our online work. And so, yeah, stay tuned for that in our classes. And that's how we're going to be able to support people more with this work online. We have, so in the schedule, it did say 90 minutes, but Giten is here for 60. So we do have 30 minutes right now. And the one thing that it really felt like in the last couple of days was that it'd be so fun to just spend some time sharing with each other and getting to know each other. And I know we have about 47 people here. And so I had this inspiration for everyone to go into, if we can put you into some breakout rooms in small groups so that you can share and see how, you know, what it's like being in T11 or T7 and maybe what some of your main, what you've received so far this week, sharing what you've received so far in this experience. So let's go in and do that. So I'll create the rooms and it'll be for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll take a break. Does that sound good for you guys? You can unmute and let me know. Yeah? All right, let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right, perfecto.